Hello, my name is Erik Breitenbach. I'm here with the University of Minnesota Tax Clinic, and today I'll be talking about your rights in an audit. So first, we'll talk about the source of the rights. These are mainly going to be coming from Publication 1, which is also known as the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. It's a one-page sheet that has all of the main rights in an audit in it, meant to be easy to understand. There's also some rights that come from the Internal Revenue Code. Those are more technical and harder to apply. We'll cover a few of them as we're going through your rights in an audit, but to really get the most out of them, it's in your best interest to contact the tax clinic to make the best use of them. So the first set of rights is what I call the communication or correctness standards. First one is the right to be informed. This means that you're entitled to clear explanations. The IRS isn't really allowed to dance around what they think you owe or why they think you owe it. And you also have the right to quality service, which ties into that right to be informed because you're required to receive prompt and courteous assistance to get information in a way that you can easily understand. And if service isn't up to par, you're able to speak to a supervisor. Moving on to the correctness side, you have the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax. The IRS shouldn't be going after your entire life savings, all the money that you've ever saved in a bank. The purpose of an audit is really to understand the correct amount of tax, whether that be from income or other forms of money that you've received during the year. The IRS should be looking just at that, not at your entire financial assets. And last in the communication and correctness standards is right to finality, which means that the IRS is required to communicate to you when an audit is finished. There's also a portion of the Internal Revenue Code that ties into this right to finality, wherein the IRS is only allowed to audit you once per tax year. What the IRS calls an audit for the purposes of that section of the Internal Revenue Code is fairly technical, and it's essentially opening your books. It's what they call it. So it's not every communication that they send to you. It's just when they inspect your tax books for the year. So moving on from that, you have what I call the challenge protections. And this is really where the tax clinic is kind of your best friend for helping you to challenge things that the IRS is sending you. So you have the right to challenge and be heard. This means that you're able to respond to the IRS when they're sending you documents about what they think you owe, what they're auditing you on. And if it's timely, the IRS is required to consider that response. You have the right to appeal in an independent forum. Almost all IRS decisions are able to be appealed, and the level of that appeal will depend on the situation. Some of them you may only be able to take it to the IRS Appeals Office, which is an office within the IRS that considers appeals. Others you may be able to take to the tax court or the United States District Court, which is going to have a judge ruling on the case and considering all the merits independently. You have the right to retain representation, whether it's the tax clinic or somebody else, but you have the ability to ask somebody to look at the information and deal with the IRS on your behalf. And you have a right to a fair and just tax system. This means that the tax system will consider all the underlying facts and circumstances in your situation when they're assessing penalties or looking at the money that you owe. Tax clinic can also help with this. We have a lot of experience with penalties and putting people in currently not collectible status or submitting offers in compromise when dealing with the IRS. And the last set of protections that kind of get grouped together is the privacy protection. So you have a right to privacy, and that is the expectation that the IRS is not going to be looking into every corner of your personal life. They're going to be looking at things that directly affect your tax situation and nothing more than that. And included with that is the due process rights that come along with that, where if the IRS is going further into your personal life, then it's required to understand the tax situation, that they have to go through a measured process for that, and go through supervisor appeal and things of that nature if they're going deeper into your tax situation. Last but not least, you have the right to confidentiality, which is the expectation that your information isn't going to get out to the wider public unless the law authorizes it or you as the taxpayer specifically authorizes it. There's protections surrounding this and ways to get some measure of compensation if it does get out there without authorization, but for the most part, you should be able to expect that any information that you're giving to the IRS in connection with an audit won't make its way to the general public. The tax clinic's role in all this, as I said earlier, the tax clinic can provide representation while the audit is ongoing. If the IRS reaches out about an audit, 99% of the time it's going to be through the mail, because IRS works almost exclusively through the mail for audit procedures. If you have a piece of mail saying that the IRS disagrees with the amount of tax that you said you owe or that you're in an audit, it's best to reach out to the tax clinic as soon as possible. That gives us the most time to get a handle on the situation and give us the most freedom in dealing with the IRS. And I've also included the tax clinic's contact information below for reaching out to the tax clinic in the future. So that's been a brief overview of your rights in an audit. Thanks for watching.